Hi, I'm Norm Williams with Advanced Building Materials, a company that is dedicated to the promotion and education of high-quality construction and renovation products. I wanted to produce a show where manufacturers had an outlet to discuss the unique products that they make and the benefits that those products bring to the construction and renovation markets. Welcome to Building with Advanced Building Materials. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Alex White, account executive with Mac Coatings, a Canadian manufacturer out of Windsor, Ontario, that produces protective coatings for concrete and asphalt. Alex talked to me about the many different products that Mac Coatings produces, specifically their dedicated line of stamped concrete and asphalt sealers, and the do's and don'ts of their application. If you want to learn about sealing concrete or asphalt, then this video is for you, and thanks for watching. But Alex, welcome to the show. And first of all, I'd just like to start off by thanking you for being on the show. And maybe if you can just give us a little introduction to yourself and how you came to be with Mac Coatings.
Yeah, so I was, prior to this job, or this career rather, I was in construction. So I was in construction for about 3.5 years. So I had helped out build some condominiums, some houses. And then I moved on to another special project where we did a renovation of a 160-year-old building and turned that into a steak and seafood restaurant. Prior to that, I was in the hospitality industry. And then I was bartender, server. Even before that, I was a dishwasher, cook. So I was big time in the hospitality for a long time during my 20s. And went to school for biochemistry at Western there in London. And then to get into Mac Coatings, actually I applied for SWT Group, which is our parent company. We are a predominant asphalt company. We deal with a lot of the logistics of moving asphalt all over the United States and into Canada as well. Predominantly we are US facing, and Mac Coatings is one of our companies. And then specializes in coatings. That specifically is your industrial coatings. That'd be like your direct metal, concrete and asphalt sealers, and then greenhouse coatings. And greenhouse coatings, what we did was we do a pipe coating for the heating and cooling in our greenhouses, and shade coating, which goes on top of greenhouses.
Yeah, so if you could, can you run us through just some of the coatings that Mac Coatings offers, like through the different industries that that the coatings go into, and then maybe with a little bit more focus on what we're going to be talking about today, which is the asphalt and concrete sealing products.
Yeah, so generally with industrial coatings, that's your direct metal. So we have water and solvent base. For your solvent, you have your general air and quick dry. Quick dry, obviously, like the name suggests, it's the quickest dry industrial enamel. And basically with industrial coatings, what you're trying to do is prevent corrosion, rust, damage to a substrate. That's why you coat it to begin with. We do some epoxies. We do a Mac track, which is your traffic paint. And I mentioned before with the Mac pipe with the greenhouses. Also on the greenhouse side, we do shade coating. So shade coating would be for Mac Cloud or Mac Clear Sky, Mac IR, Mac Diffuse IR, and that regulates the temperature and the amount of light and infrared getting into greenhouses. So that's a removable coating. Usually goes on the start of summer, just to lessen the impact of the damaging UV and infrared for greenhouses. And then it comes off going into the fall. That's at this slide too.
Yeah.
Specifically for this conversation, concrete asphalt sealers, we have our tried, true, and tested most popular product. That's our Max Seal CS25. That's a cure and seal 25, and it also comes in 12. So your 25 would be the 25 number means the amount of solids in it, so that's going to be a higher gloss sealer, and the 12 is or your low gloss. So that's your CS12. Then we have the decorative sealer, the Sealer 25. The biggest difference between that and cure and seal would be the VOC compliancy. One's 350 degree, 50 grams per centimeter, grams per liter rather, and then the other one's 400 grams per liter. We have Max Seal AQ, that's a water-based acrylic sealer. That would be more of your matte finish. It's kind of sits in the range of 18 to 20% solids. You're going to see that used a lot in greenhouses. A lot of different concrete applications where VOCs are a restraint, where they have to lower these VOCs very, very low. And new one we just came out with, being an asphalt company, we have Mac Black now. It's an asphalt sealer. It's solvent based. And you'll see that used on driveways, parking lots, basically anywhere you can kind of put asphalt, you can stick that sealer on.
Yep.
A few other ones, we have a penetrating sealer, Mac 10. Maybe we can talk about that after. And yeah.
Okay. Hey, since we're probably going to start off with the concrete sealers, you mentioned the word solids in there. Can you just give us a brief rundown of what solids means when you say 18% solids or 25 or 12% solids, just to give the people an idea as what you're talking about?
So all wet applications, and at least the ones we deal with, are they have a carrier, and then their carriers are solvent. So water is a universal solvent, but when we talk about solvent water, we can kind of split it apart. The solvent side of it, or the water, is what carries the product, what carries the resin and the pigments, and basically raw materials, what you want that coating to do. And we're talking about solids. The higher the solids, the thicker the dried film thickness you're going to have. So a good way to look at it is, our sealer, it's 25%. Right. So 25% of that entire, if you took 1 liter of that coating, 250 milliliters of it would be solids. And that's basically, after everything evaporates or flashes off, if it's a solvent, that's what you're left with. That is your protective coating, and that is what you're looking for. To give you, there's epoxies nowadays. Most epoxies are 100% solids.
That's right.
So they've done a pretty good job taking solvents, almost completely solvents right out of epoxy 2K systems, and you're left with 100% solids. So you can imagine if you laid down sealer and then you laid down epoxy obviously would be a lot thicker because a lot less evaporates off because you're left with a lot more solids.
Yeah. And when you say you're using a 25% solids, and just continuing on the solids conversation here, you have flashing off, you're left with 25%. Can you give us an estimate as to what the dry film thickness would be that you guys are looking at for a stamped concrete sealer?
Well, with the stamped concrete sealer, or just concrete sealer in general, you're always looking less is more, right? The substrate is always going to vary based on what to begin with. A CP profile 1 to CP profile 10. 1 being very, very smooth surface, almost like glass, and 10 would almost be like a rock face. So your coating is going to change your dry film thickness. But typically what we look for, if you would like a 1 mil thickness, dry film thickness, you'll be looking at applying 4 mils wet. So since it's 25% solids, to get that finished 1 mil thickness, you would apply 4 mils wet. Typically, I like to say with sealers, you see that 1, 2 to 3 range at the very most. Again, less is more. And it varies substrate to substrate, but that's typically a good rule of thumb to start.
Okay, all right. And when you're talking about CP, you're talking about concrete surface preparation and the profile of what that is.
Concrete profile, yeah. So concrete profile, CP1 to CP2. That's just how, how porous is it? How rough is it? Is it very, very smooth? Is this completely polished concrete that literally you can run your hand over, it's nothing? Or is it very, very rough? It's got divots, it's got peaks, it's got valleys, and everything else in between.
Yeah. What do you think for matte coatings makes your sealer stand out compared to other concrete sealers out there? It's a very competitive market. What makes your product stand out a little bit more than others?
Well, ours has got a superior color enhancements, a big one on ours. Unlike generic sealers, what matte coatings did is enrich and protect the vibrant colors of stamped concrete, and we always made sure that at the forefront. We've always thought, you eat with your eyes first, and I would say the majority of end users, especially homeowners, that are using concrete sealer are looking for that aesthetic value. We look to high performance protection. It creates a strong protective barrier against moisture, stains, chemicals, and UV exposure. We're also always trying to prevent common discoloration issues, cracking, and surface degradation. We have a low VOC compliance. About 9-10 years ago, Canada, the federal government, said, hey, we're dropping VOCs on sealers. As a result, a lot of people switched out their xylene-based sealers for something lower, so we made sure we're within that threshold that a contractor or someone doing much more concrete work than the average person can still use our products. It's extremely versatile application, designed for both residential and commercial use. It could be applied by roller or sprayer. Its ease and efficiency for contractors and homeowners alike is just very, very, very easy to put on. Very forgiving. You don't have to keep it in that very extreme time temperature range. Even though there is a temperature range, it's got a lot of leeway both ways. Also, when the formulation was being developed, we had to make sure it was breathable and non-lightning.
Yeah.
Concrete, when it's first poured, typically you can put your curency on within 24 hours after that. So you've got to allow that concrete to breathe. And if it can't breathe with the sealer on top of it, it's gonna, you're gonna get that cloudiness. And there's a lot of sealers, a lot of aftermarket sealers, and sealers are just not high quality. That regardless if you went to a small amount on, you're gonna get clouding and moisture, not just trapped moisture.
Yeah.
And overall, just the durability and longevity. I've seen hundreds of brands of sealer, and they range from 1 or 2 raw materials to 15 raw materials in them, and we're on the 12 to 13 raw materials side, where we were always thinking about durability and longevity. We didn't want a sealer to go on and at the end of the season, and by the end of the season I mean it goes on in spring and it's coming off by the end of summer. We're always looking for 2 to 3 years before an application. And again, UV and environment will always play a factor, but we're always, we want people, be trusted in that they could put the sealer on and it can last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. And because of some of the ingredient changes that you guys have had to make to make your sealers compliant, do you find that your sealer is a little bit easier to apply than others? Like I know, at one time when there was compliancy, then there was a real issue on the material flashing off so darn fast. It was very difficult to apply the sealers. How do you find your sealers today? How they apply, and maybe just address that.
Well, it's our engineer, our head engineer, coatings engineer, Middleton. He addressed this issue because he was able to have foresight into what was happening. Basically, what happened was when the Canadian government said, "Hey, we're dropping VOCs," everyone said, "Well, I guess we can't make it with 100% xylene anymore." Now, xylene flashes off, and at the perfect amount of time where you can get cross-linking within the acrylic resin, so you can get a really, really nice coat. And there's a lot of guys that if they could still buy xylene, they would, but because of VOC, you can't. And our head engineer, Milton, did a fantastic job of using a combination of 4 or 5 raw materials and solvents to mimic xylene almost exactly, while staying under that VOC compliancy. And that's what made us a really trusted brand. That year when they switched over to the VOC compliancy, a lot of companies switched xylene out for acetone 1-to-1. Acetone flashes off 6 times quicker than xylene. And you can imagine that if it's flashing off quicker and it's evaporating, it doesn't give the resin and the rest of the raw materials in that coating to actually set a fine film and a durable film. And I talked to contractors to this day that had sworn off sealer 9 years ago because that year people just switched out and didn't do the proper R&D research or formulation. They failed that year. So Matt Coons was really strong. It's kind of guys got to really dig us in the market then because we can trust it because we were the sealer that it was a new formulation based off VOC, but it wasn't failing. And that just makes the easy use so much easier. Like it gives you the confidence that you're putting down a quality sealer to protect your concrete that you just poured, or that's 10 years old and you want to keep it going.
Yeah, you guys had some real challenges there to try and come up with something that was a little bit more user friendly. I know when they eliminated xylenes, it was pretty tough to find a sealer that you could actually apply. What do you guys find is the best way to apply your sealer? Like, is it just from a homeowner issue or from that standpoint? What would you recommend to homeowners out there?
Well, homeowners, I think if a homeowner is comfortable using a sprayer, use a sprayer. Chapin makes a great sprayer, and there's a lot of other sprayers. As long as it's used for concrete sealer, you gotta make sure it's not just a typical plastic sprayer for water. So spraying's fine too, and rolling as well. Rolling is very, very easy. Like I said, it's very user friendly to apply. The most important thing for applying sealer is not the application. I would say it's the prep work.
Yeah.
It is the surface preparation. And the easiest way to do that is the day before. You know you're going to have a nice day coming up. I would hit that driveway, that cement pad, that stamped concrete with the power washer. You can brush it off first or blow it off with a leaf blower prior, then hit it with a power washer. Try to get any existing stains off of it if this isn't fresh concrete, that was just poured. And then give it a full day to dry. You want it to dry completely because you don't want to trap any moisture in there. Doing that spray and roll, there's challenges with each. With roll, you gotta make sure you back roll. What'll happen sometimes and it's not a huge amount of back rolling, but what I mean by that is with the roller, you're gonna go out, and when you push the roller forward to the left or right of it, you're gonna get excess.
Yeah.
And you gotta make sure when you pull that back, you're just smoothing that back out in either direction. So you can imagine if I just do one quick push with the roller, and then you have those two lines, there's little fishtails on the side, and you leave it, it'll dry like that. So back rolling is important with the roll application. And then that was spraying. A lot of people get carried away as far as they want to spray on more. They think if I put on more, it's better. It's actually counterintuitive. More is not better in the case of sealer. When you're spraying a sealer on, you want to spray enough just so the concrete is wet. What's nice about concrete sealer is it's a thermodynamic coating. So even if you spray too little on and you don't like it, you can always add more. But if you add too much, that's when you have to get down. You might have to remove some. You're going to get some cloudiness and some lightning. So again, that's the best applications there. There's a lot of great YouTube stuff online. I know Matt Coatings, we're working on some application videos if we eventually want to get on our website. And then there's a lot of other tips and tricks. What kind of roller do you want to use? Some people like the thicker roller, and some people like the thinner roller. Some people pour out their sealer right from the pail, roll that out, and some people put it in a paint tray. I prefer the paint tray. I just like to move the paint tray as I go. A good idea too, when you're applying sealer, you want to start at the top of the driveway, the highest, and move down the slope. So you never want to be moving up the slope. So typically driveways run down towards the road. So I'd start at the top of the driveway and move down. And then at temperature. You never want it super hot, and you never want it very, very cold. By cold, you can go down to about 10 degrees Celsius, it's okay. And hot, you don't want to go much over 85, 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily about the air. You got to check the temperature of the substrate. Put your hand down, and even though the sun's not there anymore, you don't want to ever really seal direct sunlight. Even though you can, you want to touch the driveway. Just make sure it's not too hot.
Yeah, great. You mentioned rollers too. We get asked this a lot, and I have varying opinions on this. Foam roller or a regular 10 millimeter paint roller?
So I've seen both done. I've applied with both. I don't have an issue using either roller.
Okay.
If you're going to do a typical roller, make sure it's a high quality one. Just because what you'll find with some of the lower quality rollers, as you're rolling, some of the fabric will come off in little hairs. It won't be too noticeable, especially on a giant cement pad or driveway, but it could come off. So get yourself a high quality roller. It's something not to cheap out on. Pay a couple extra bucks for the nicer rollers. But as far as that to the foam rollers, I've never seen any real evidence of which one is better. Again, it'll come down to the applicator and their experience.
Okay.
The more you do, the better you're going to get at it, and the better you figure out the look you want.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned temperatures as to the temperature to apply the sealer at. What about, we always get asked this too, what about rain? Like, how does that factor in? Like, what type of drying time are we talking about here? Like, I go seal my driveway and, and then it rains an hour later. Like, or what's the drying time on it? Like, what do you really look for a period of time to apply the sealer?
Well, dry time is going to vary significantly. I always tell people, try to seal when there's no rain in the forecast. Now, Again, that can't always be prevented, but if you can, it's going to be dry to the touch, sometimes within an hour, if not less, the initial flash off, because there's different stages of the solvent coming out. There's the initial flash off, secondary, and then tertiary. That's when it actually solidifies and hardens up. Now, let's say I'm sealing and there's water and there's rain in the forecast, I would typically like to see a full dry of 3 to 4 hours before I hit that rain. Because at that point, if rain hits, you might be safe. But again, the environment's going to play a big factor. How hot it is up that day, the humidity. If it's an extremely humid day, it's going to be tough for some of that flash off to come off, especially with water-based sealers. A hot day, it's going to cure much quicker. That's why you don't want to go in too hot of a day. And yeah, I think that's basically for that, for temperature and the rain. Obviously, a lot of people plan to seal, and then that day it rains. And the question I get, hey, it rained in the morning, can I seal in the afternoon? It's kind of a yes/no question.
Okay.
How fast is your driveway or cement pads or stamped concrete? How does it look dry? Does it feel dry? Is it actually dry? I always recommend that if it does rain that day, a significant amount, I would wait till the following day to seal. Even though the cure and seal has been designed to allow a lot of the moisture that's cured in the curing concrete to come out, it hasn't been formulated for a downpour rain and for it not to be evaporated after 24 hours. So I would really err on the side of caution and seal the next day.
Yeah, okay. All right. And do you guys recommend morning, afternoon? Again, I know there's so many different, and these are just questions that always seem to come up, but let's say I'm in the summertime and, it does go up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit that day, and then my driveway's been out in the sun all day. Does that play a factor?
Yeah, so we have a lot of people that are applicators, and that's their sealing business. And they are really good at sealing any points of the day, but they know the tips and tricks, and they know how to get them that quicker. You can move through, like I said, Max Seal is a very forgiving product where even though we have that temperature range we want you in, we don't want it super hot, we don't want it a little cold. Yeah. As a homeowner, I would seal first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Or in the late afternoon to evening. And be careful, a lot of times you'll have, the sun moves, so you have sun on the substrate you want to seal all day. As soon as that sun moves up the substrate in the shade, people are like, oh, I'm good to seal. That substrate's still hot, so I would make sure it's not hot to the touch. You can get yourself a thermal gun and hit that, look at that concrete, take a shot at it, see how hot it is. Because ideally you want to be sealing somewhere in the, Fahrenheit, can go as low as in the, 45, 50, 55 is probably the cutoff range, and you can go as high as 85, 90. Oh. Now, I've seen people at Fahrenheit go higher than that, but that's when you're going to get stringing and it's going to be evaporating and drying too quick. Your top temperature range, your best sealing range, is always going to be between 50 and 90 Fahrenheit, but the best is right that 70 to 80, 82 Fahrenheit is your ideal sealing range.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
Okay. All right. When we're sealing stamped concrete specifically, you're putting it on there and you're getting a nice gloss on the surface. Again, you always get the concern about slipping, and when it's wet out, that surface becomes a little bit slippery. Does Matte Coatings offer anything in order to prevent slip resist or prevent slipping? Do they have a slip resistant product that they can add?
Yeah, you can get there's a lot of different anti-slip additives on the market. There's some polymers, there's some plastics, polypropylene. Matte Coatings offers a economical walnut shell. Actually, brown walnut shells, and that's an additive. Yeah, so you can mix that in with your sealer. It's very easy to mix. It stays suspended. It can go through the sprayer, and it can be rolled on. And that's going to add a little bit of grit to your sealing. One thing to look at too is that low gloss to matte finishes. High gloss sealers can sometimes become slick when wet, and that again onto stamped concrete because it's a smooth surface. It's going to be more slick than let's say it was brushed concrete. Matte Coatings provides a low gloss matte finish option that enhances protection and it retains more of a slip resistant surface. So that's going to be like your CS12 and our Max Seal AQ. But again, we're always reducing the risk of slipperiness caused by trap condensation and surface buildup because of our breathable formulas. So even though you put a high-class sealer on, ours has been shown that it's actually less slippery than a lot of other products out on the market.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways around it. Biggest one too I tell people to avoid is typically when I visit one of our customers or distributors, their customers, it's too slippery. It's usually a case of over application. If you put on just that right amount we were talking about earlier, even on stamped concrete, there's enough texture to that concrete to come through that you still won't slip and slide on it. A lot of times when I see slippery surfaces, it's at over application. So pulled concrete sealer, pulled a concrete sealer, and when it dries thicker, and then the substrate of the surface of the substrate is totally gone now. Now it's just a very smooth surface, and that's typically where you'll see the most slippery spots.
Okay.
So again, that's an application error, and that'll be an over application, which can be easily fixed.
Yeah. Okay. So we're when you're talking about acrylic sealers, obviously you're talking about sealers that are laying on top of the surface. Do you ever get anyone out there that wants to put a sealer on there that doesn't make your stamped concrete shiny, and maybe so I'm referring to the penetrating sealers. So do you ever have anyone putting penetrating sealers on stamped concrete or just brushed concrete?
No, I think a lot of times it goes on brushed concrete, but it goes on stamped concrete too as well. Even though concrete's stamped in there, it still penetrates. It's a siliconate, so the easiest way to put on a MAC pen penetrating sealer is we wet the surface a little bit to give it a little bit of just a quick mist, just so it just starts to turn wet. You apply the MAC pen, and that will penetrate down into the substrate, and that's a great option too, because I want protection of my substrate, but I love how it looks already, and I don't want to change it. I don't want it to look glossy. I don't want a low gloss. I don't even want a matte finish. I just want to I want to protect it, and penetrating sealer is the way to go with that.
Yeah. Okay, so just a brief rundown of what you talked about, so the DIYer out there can understand. If you had a list of 5 things to do for your stamped concrete sealing project, and could just do a brief synopsis as to how to get this job done properly, what would your list be?
You're talking about common mistakes?
Yeah.
Things for...
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a good one. The only one I go to is, common mistakes for homeowners and things to look out to is applying sealer too early. Sealing freshly poured concrete, if you're gonna do it the day after concrete, make sure you get an actual cure and seal. It will say cure and seal on it, or it will say just a normal acrylic sealer or a decorative sealer. So just make sure to, so you don't get any bubbling or peeling or discoloration, that, you're not applying it too early. Surface preparation, again, is paramount. Applying sealer over dirt, debris, or stains, it's going to prevent the sealer from bonding properly to a substrate, and it's going to lead to uneven finish. So you can clean that. You can even use a mild cleaner on it if you like too.
Yeah.
You power wash it.
What type of cleaner are you talking? What type of cleaner are you talking about there?
You could go. Yeah, you can go very, very general. There is some that we don't, but there is some that market to clean your driveway. But I've had people use a smidge of Dawn dish soap or Palmolive dish soap with some water and just power wash your driveway. Make sure to power wash that cleaner off.
Yeah.
It's a surfactant. So that's gonna, it's gonna decrease Max Seal's ability to actually stick to that substrate. So make sure you clean that off. Another thing too is using the wrong type of sealer. You've got to really do your research when looking at sealer as far as what you want to look like. Do you want a glossy sealer on surface, or do you want a matte finish? So I talked about the over application. Again, this is less is more. I would love to tell people to use more concrete sealers, but that's not the case here. If you're applying too much sealer, it can lead to pooling, which leads to that slipping, streaking. And you can avoid this with just thin, even coats. So typically sealer, you're only going to put one coat on. But if you need to, you can always put a second coat on afterwards, even before it dries. It's not a problem at all, but over application. Also, another too, a lot of people, I run into different concretes from different admix companies and contractors, and it's always a good idea to test it out. So, instead of taking your pail of concrete sealer, pouring it out and start rolling it, just open up that pail, take a little brush, take it out, and brush it in a very off the side area of your driveway, of your your patio, your porch, and see if you like the look of it.
Yeah.
Let's just put it there. If you don't like the look, it's very easy to remove solvent. You know, we have a Max Seal Restore product that gets rid of it, or you can just put some xylene on it to get rid of it.
Yeah, I always
test that for compatibility. I always let people, I was like, you need to test it, just put it on, see if you like it first.
Yeah, I always recommend people to do that. If they don't like it, just put a planter over top of it afterwards.
Yeah, it's easy. You just always put a planter over it, and like I said, if you really want to, hit it with some xylene, it'll disappear. Like I said, it's a thermodynamic coating, so what that means is, you know, your wall paint in your house, your latex wall paint, that's thermo setting where once it's dry, it's never coming off again. Where this is thermodynamic, where you can reintroduce the solvent to it. It will almost re-liquefy, and you can re-roll it out, you can even it out, and then you can let it dry again. So it's very forgiving in that.
And do you guys have a product for that per se? Like you're talking about, we do get this a little bit. Like if that sealer does turn, it's not allowing moisture to come through. It's on there a little bit too thick. It is turning white. Do you guys offer products to turn around and address that issue?
Absolutely. We call it, it's our Max Seal Rest. So it's a Max Seal acrylic restorer. And what that is it's the solvent package without the additives, without the resin. And all it's designed to do is, let's say I do over application. You know, I put on way too much. Come out the next day and there's clouding everywhere. And again, like we said, clouding is that trapped moisture, either coming from the curing concrete, or let's say you applied too much sealer and it rained earlier that day and you still put it on. It is fixable. A lot of people get panicked. So what this is you would apply it just like you would apply sealer. You know, this stuff is much thinner. It's not as, it's much more viscous. So less will go a lot farther, and you can spray or roll that on. Again, it's going to re-liquefy that. At that point, you'd have to use a roller because you can't use a sprayer anymore. You'd have to just evenly move all that excess out. So that would just be a matter of re-rolling it back out. It's also a great product too. Like I said, our product was designed so it lasts at 2 to 3 years at this latitude and other latitudes, you know, with the UV and the freeze thaw and the salts on the road. Let's say next year you want to seal again, you want it to pop, because the gloss will start to go within that first year. The sealer's still there, but you're going to start to use the gloss. So we have a lot of customers that want to maintain their gloss. But I tell them, I was like, hey, your sealer's still there, okay? You could put on more sealer, that's not a problem, but you can get this more cost-effective option, the Max Seal Rest. You put that on, it's going to re-liquefy the coating, and then you re-roll it on, you let it sit, it's going to pop, and all the resin and all the solid's still there from the year before, because you're still not at that 2 to 3 year mark. So it's a great product for that too. So for a mistake product.
So you do get a glossiness after putting the Max Restore?
If you have it, yeah.
You do.
If you do have enough resin left, yeah, you do. You know, it all depends on the application. You know, if you did the right amount of applications, there's enough left over. You know, how punishing was the summer? Was it sunlight every single day, and was the winter terrible with salt all the time and freeze thaw? That's going to affect the longevity of your coating. That's going to affect the longevity of every coating in the world. So there's that. And yeah, but there's a lot of times people will put it on, you know, through the summer, the sealer, and let it go through the winter, and then in the springtime, a lot of times they'll apply the Max Seal Restore, and it makes it pop again.
Yeah.
But again, it'd be good to talk to your distributor and say, hey, can you, you know, shoot them a picture of your driveway or your porch or your patio and say, is your sealer still on here? It's not evident to them. It's easy to tell if it is or not.
Yeah. And how do you tell if your sealer's still there? Like because we get that question a lot.
Yeah, visual inspection is a good way to look at it. You can visually look at it. You can just tell if the sealer. Now, if it's more trickier than that, let's say there's a pattern in the stamped concrete, and it doesn't look quite like it did. It doesn't have that glossy look. You can hit it with the hose and see how water reacts with it. You can drop a little bit of oil. You take a little bit of oil and you pour it on, you know, an area that you suspect still has sealer on it. Is water seeping into the concrete, or is it beating off of it? There's a lot of different ways you can check for that.
Yeah. So obviously you put some water on there, it's beating off. There's still some sealer there. probably not necessary to seal it. So, like, there's a good question. How often are we sealing concrete, like stamped concrete? Then, and I know it's going to be dependent on what the weather was and how it's like you say. We have a really sunny summer, and is it breaking down a little bit? But generally speaking, is there a rule of thumb out there?
Again, always, environment always plays in a factor. I wish I could tell people down to the day that you're going to need a sealer, but we see within 2 to 3 years. You know, in the low end, 2 years. Every 2 seasons you should be sealing, and then some go 3 years. And again, this is going to come down to personal preference.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I doing it solely for the aesthetic value, or do I understand why the concrete sealer actually exists? Why I'm actually doing concrete sealers?
Yeah. Okay. What about stain resistance? Do the acrylic sealers over top of stamped concrete, or the acrylic sealers in general, offer stain resistance, and specifically speaking to oil?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why you would seal, right? It's given your concrete is very porous to begin with, and you've sprayed your driveway, your stamped concrete, your patio with a hose, and it soaks right in. This creates a protective barrier, and that's why SWT and MAC coatings is in the business of coatings. Is it's going to block a lot of different common spills of chemicals that you'd see in a household or even on a job site from seeping into that concrete and staining it. But yes, it does stop stains.
Yeah.
It stops oil penetration and other chemicals. Our asphalt sealer is actually a cut pack. It's a mixture of a certain grade of asphalt that we source, and then we mix it with a solvent, and we move it around quite a bit. Huge truckloads, large truckloads of asphalt sealer. There's different cutbacks depending on what you're looking for, totes and drums. And just recently, Mac Coating started putting it in pails for homeowners. I don't think any homeowner wants to buy a drum of asphalt sealer, but we do have that capability to allow people to buy trucks if they need to and totes. But the homeowner, and then it was a really big hit last year. There's a lot of water emulsions came out. We've never gotten a water emulsions yet. We're looking at it, but a lot of people still like the solvent-based asphalt sealer.
Yeah. What are some of the advantages of using asphalt sealer for the DIYers out there?
Big time protection against the elements. Asphalt UV is very punishing on asphalt. It enhances the durability and longevity, resists wear and tear. Ultimately, it's that aesthetic appeal too. Same with the concrete sealer. Where concrete, typically looks like concrete forever, but asphalt, you can imagine, even at the first year of freshly poured asphalt, it's black, and even within the end of the summer, it's gray. Asphalt does not have high UV resistance for pigmentation for the change. It turns gray very, very quick. So, you put the asphalt sealer on there, it's going to protect it, and it's also going to make it look better. It also helps with maintenance and cleaning, right? Asphalt cracks much easier. It hits much easier. There's lots more dips and dives. It's a very cost-effective solution. Instead of, I don't want to tear up my asphalt every couple of years, just put this over top of it. You're basically, what the general public thinks of asphalt, they think about the road. That's actually a mixture of asphalt, which is bitumen, and mixed with sand, gravel, and some additives. What asphalt actually is the black, substance that's left over after crude oil refinement. That's mixed to make your roads. And all we're doing is we're taking that substance, we're putting a carrier in it, which would be a solvent in this case, and you're re-putting a whole layer over it. Another thing too is people don't know, it helps reduce the amount of water that seeps into the ground. You put that back in, you're not going to get water back under your asphalt anymore, right? And there's cracks that open up. Water goes under, it pools underneath. If you get enough water right before it freezes, within those cracks, water freezes, it expands, you get that freeze thaw, and that's what destroys your roads, especially your driveways and asphalt roads.
Does the coating bridge any of the cracking that's there, or
there's specific components for that. So that's cracking in asphalt. So you'll need a much more viscous, it depends on the size of the crack. So I would say anywhere between you're going up to 3-4 millimeter cracks. Our asphalt sealer, based off the way we're making it right now, it's going to fill it beautifully. It's going to be fine.
Okay.
Those larger cracks, you're going to get a special product for a crack, right? It's a much, much more viscous product. It's something that we looked into. We haven't currently produced it yet. There's been a couple questions about it. Most people, unless it's a homeowner, parking lots not really looking at a big crack filling per se. So it's something I go back and forth on about if are we going to develop this product, but it depends on the size of the crack. Long story short, it just depends on the size of the crack.
From an application of the asphalt sealer, like how many, are you doing this once a year? Are you doing it once every couple of years? What are you thinking on that? Again, it's going to come down to environmental issues, but is there a rule of thumb there?
I would say every 2 to 3 years. Again, this is going to come back to it's a personal preference of the homeowner. We make a high quality asphalt sealer, and 2 or 3 years that coating's still going to be there. Again, after that first year, depending on UV exposure, it's going to start to gray on you. It's the nature of asphalt. I can't change the chemistry behind it. I wish I could, but it will start to gray. But for most asphalt drivers and parking lots, you're thinking 2 to 3 years. High traffic areas, extremely high traffic areas like big parking lots. A lot of our customers that buy the truckloads and totes of it, exposed to harsh weather conditions. It may need it more frequently, 1 to 2 years. But again, we've all been in asphalt parking lots that are just falling apart, and it all depends on what you want to do.
Yeah.
Typically as a homeowner, if you're showing signs of wear, which would be fading color, visible cracks, water no longer beading on the surface. Again, do I need to seal? Is water beading on the surface? They're good to go. There's sealer there. Now, it's just a personal preference at that point if you want to seal again to make it thicker. But if it's beading on the surface, you're good. But if you're putting water on it and it's disappearing, that means it's getting under the asphalt. That means you're risking that freeze thaw when it starts to freeze, damage underneath, and then it's time to reseal.
Yeah. With the asphalt sealers, are they a little bit more forgiving than the concrete sealers, would you think? It just sounds to me like less issue if I'm putting more and more asphalt sealer on.
Absolutely. Like, asphalt doesn't need to breathe, per se.
Yep.
It doesn't, in concrete and asphalt are very, very different. Concrete has much more additives. The admixture and the admix is much more involved in it. It needs proper curing, where asphalt, we're just talking about asphalt driveways, asphalt parking lots and pads, much more forgiving. So you can go nuts with it, right?
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that the more you put on, the longer it's going to take to dry. It's also you got to look at the cost effectiveness on, am I doing this as a profession? I want to put on the right amount, opposed to, I'm a homeowner. Well, hey, I want to go overboard and really douse this on there. You're going to find, like any coating, asphalt's a much more porous and more divotty and more pitted surface than concrete. So you can imagine if you put on more of this asphalt sealer, it's going to fill in those divots and pivots a lot more and smooth it out and give it that nice finish look.
Yeah. Is there a thickness recommendation for putting the asphalt sealer on?
I typically tell people, you want to, I would go like probably that 8 to 12 mils range. That's probably the thickness of a credit card and a half. And then if you like it, leave it. And then if not, you can always add more. It's not like the same story as concrete sealer that less is more. But I would start with less. Like I said, it's a high quality asphalt sealer. It's going to get the coating on there. You're going to get the protection. We're expecting on a normal driveway, you're going to get that 2 to 3 years. But again, you can always go more. But somewhere in that's, right around 10 mils is a good recommendation to go at.
And if I'm putting it on at 8 to 12 mils or 10 mils, let's just say there, is there flash off with that product? Like, if I'm putting out 10 mils, am I actually getting 7 mils, 6 mils of product?
You're getting, so our product is about 60% solid. So 10 mils, you're getting about 6-7 mils.
Okay. Okay.
Now, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and for DIYers out there who might not be familiar with a gauge or something like that, and can I just measure this with a wet film thickness gauge?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really easy to do.
Okay.
I tell someone the 10 millimeter, 50 millimeter, 20 millimeter brush roller if they want to roll it on, or sprayer. Just as soon as it turns black, you don't see any of the old asphalt underneath it. You don't see any gray. You're pretty much good to go.
You're good, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, start with that product. Do the whole driveway. Do the whole parking lot. I'm not your parking lot, but if you have an asphalt pad somewhere around that, and then you can always add more on.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a better time of year to apply asphalt sealer, like in the spring or the fall, or does it matter?
Much more forgiving than concrete. So as far as you can go a little bit later, you get a little bit colder, but I would still stick within that 50 to 90 Fahrenheit range,
Okay.
just for a good cure. You don't want the solvent flashing off too quick, but again, it's a very forgiving product. Your first coat drying, it's going to be dry in about 4 to 6 hours before applying a second coat if you wish. However, it's going to vary depending on weather conditions.
Yeah.
Put the curing time for the final coat. So if you're doing 1, 2, 3 coats, again, you can do multiple coats on this. You don't have to worry about breathing. I typically tell people 24 hours before you walk on it, and a little bit over 36 hours for 24 hours still for traffic.
Okay, so 24 hours, I can get a vehicle on that area
Yeah.
that I've sealed.
Yeah, as long as you got a good dry time, as far as it's not incremental weather, it didn't rain or anything too.
Yeah.
So you're good to go.
Okay. Is there any difference between your commercial product that a professional would put on compared to the paled product that you're marketing towards the DIY market?
No, we actually
Okay.
put the professional product into the pail.
Okay. You guys are a Canadian manufacturer. I think it's important for people to know that because of what's going on now. Do you see benefit in the upcoming term for being a Canadian manufacturer in this market?
Yeah, so with the talk of the tariffs this year, we always had to look at ourselves, and being a company that operates both in Canada and the U.S., there was challenges about what products were going to have the most exposure, but we've also seen it as an opportunity. SWT Group of Matt Coatings is Canadian owned with Canadian workers. Most of our products for sealers are sold in Canada from Canadian suppliers. And we've already had people reach out, people that used to buy our product, distributors, and customers, and ask us these questions. And they were really happy to learn that we're full-blown Canadian on everything. Everything we do is Canadian. And it's not that we don't do work in the States with our asphalt side of the business, just the coatings, that's how it worked out. So it's actually created a good opportunity for us to be, it's a full-blown Canadian product.
Any new products coming out from you guys that you talk about, or anything that we maybe didn't touch on today that you might want to make people aware of?
Yeah, there's one we're actually working on. We're developing a Matt Coatings concrete densifier.
Okay, yeah.
So that's it's going to be a siliconate product, and you'll see these done in big concrete slab pours for warehouses, your footprints. And it's a one-time application, and it reacts with the curing concrete, the calcium hydroxide and everything there, and it fills every capillary and every little area of the concrete, and actually makes it stronger. So we're working on that right now in the lab, because we've seen in the market and through talking with distributors that there's a big need for that. So that's something we're working on right now.
And maybe give us some information on how we can reach out and contact you.
The best place to learn about all our products is our website. It's just been redone. You're going to get all your TDS and SDS information there. You're going to be able to contact us. You're going to be able to find out distributors close to you. If you go to the distributors page, it's going to go up based off your location, how I can get these products.
Yep.
That's backcoatings.ca.
Okay.
Reach out for our distributors for their advice. Other distributors, we've done a really good job that we are working with the distributors that we want to work with, that stand behind the product and support the product and are comfortable with the product. And as a result, their customers are really happy with it. And they know a lot of knowledge about our product, sometimes even more than me, because they've tried in applications I've never even thought of.
Yeah.
So you can always reach out for advice from the distributors and who you bought it for, and then if they can't answer it, reach back out to Matt Coatings. Go through our website, send in a question. We answer all our emails that come through to the best of our ability. We usually get back in a timely manner.
Well, it's a great product line. Anyways, Alex, I think your concrete sealers are just a phenomenal product, and I'd like to see the asphalt sealers gain a little bit more acceptance up here and stuff like that too. You guys are out of Windsor, Ontario. Is that correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. And do you want to blurt out a phone number just out of curiosity, just so people can contact you?
Yeah, you can call, Mac Coatings, you can call our order desk, Cheryl. She would love to talk to you. She's been working with the company, I think, for 27 years now. Wow. She was with her company when it was formerly MacDonald and White, and
Okay,
then we bought it, called it Mac Coatings. But that's 519-252-7275.
Okay. And I'm assuming like when someone calls there, then she's going to put them in touch with the proper distributor in the person's
Absolutely.
area. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
She knows every distributor, and she knows her name, she knows them personally.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, man. Thanks very much for coming on out and doing this today.